What happened in the first half of the Australian Grand Prix weekend? Right, well, the weekend started chaotic. I think we all expected Australia to be chaotic. It was Liam, our championship leader, on pole for the first time in his XRS career. Fantastic, but another notable man was a Melvin in P2. The Williams continuing that streak. There's always been a Williams DIV4 on the front row. Excellent consistency there by the two, and Melvin was able to put it on the front row. Another man that really stuck out to me, P4, was the Haas of Alec. Really good qualifying. He's coming out of his shell, finding his pace. I'm so excited to see what he can do the rest of the season, but really good qualifying by the Haas man. As the race started, we noticed the mediums were definitely the most popular compound of the drivers on the grid. However, the McLarens opting for the double hard, so both their drivers starting on the slower compound and trying to go longer distance into the race. Of course, that included Liam, who started on pole. In the first lap, such bad luck for Red Bull, as both of their drivers, both Pistol Peter, the man who has this fantastic streak of podiums, every single podium this season he's been on, and of course their reserve, Max, or Jamie as we know him as, coming back to the league. I think he left for a little bit. Fantastic to see him back, but what a terrible start to the race, being literally spinning, facing the wrong way. Red Bull, really difficult. As we went further into the race, I think it was around lap 2, I think, where Alec was really struggling for his pace. I saw him get overtaken by Charlie, who went uncharacteristically poor qualifying. I think he started 5th. And we usually see him a little bit higher than that, so Charlie maybe not feeling too comfortable with this track. But also Breezy, really nice to see him in the Alfa Romeo, getting past Alec. I think Alec may have been struggling with tyre temperatures because he was dropping back a little bit from where he was originally. But lap 3 was where the chaos really begun. Both Charlie and Vlad, in separate incidents, spinning out. That's two front runners, the Ferrari and the Williams, spinning out. That obviously is detrimental to Vlad, who's been having quite a poor start to the season. But Charlie, who was fighting for this championship lead, found himself facing the wrong way, and that is not a great situation for the Williams to be in. Definitely not. The battle up ahead was really close, though. There was between 4 drivers, of course. Liam, Melvin, Lockie Docky, who qualified 3rd. Very good qualifying from her. Best qualifying of the season so far. It's her 3rd race of the season. We'll chat about her later on, actually. And the 4th driver was Matea. So really nice to see the Alfa Romeo there as well. So Alfa Romeo setting some really good points here. I think they were sitting 4th and 5th at this point. Lockie made an incredible double overtake. That we know the DRS around this track is absolutely unbelievable. And you get 4 DRS straights. Of course, you've got the main one, you've got the bit after turn 1 and 2. We've got the huge, the back straight. And then, of course, following that fast chicane where we saw some incidents happen over the weekend. We'll talk about that, of course. But big double overtake there by Lockie, really saving up the battery. Really good battery management there by the Ferrari and the McLaren, I should say, actually. Liam, obviously the engineers of these two teams battling in the OCC as well. Very important for them to be focusing on what each other are doing. But what's noticeable about Lockie, though, is that she was originally signed to Mercedes. We know this. She did 1 race of the previous 3 in Qatar, qualified 18th, finished 5th. Unbelievable drive. Was my driver was my driver winner of that weekend, I do remember. But brilliant drive today as well. First time she actually got to do a qualified P3, so clearly she's a front runner. But to then take the lead, obviously it was lap 3, there was DRS, stuff like that, but to be fighting with the front boys, the big boys in the division, very exciting to see we could be seeing a new front runner. She did terminate her contract though, wasn't feeling Mercedes. She was actually quite public about not enjoying her time in Mercedes, despite only doing 1 of the 3 races. This was a reserve drive. She opted for Ferrari, which is very interesting because of not only a front team, but a team that's fighting McLaren in literally everything. We were seeing on track today Ferrari versus McLaren, which was very interesting. Liam and Lockie taking to the track. A driver that really that caught my eye as well, Blake. Blake was cutting through the field slowly. Qualified 6th, I think. So not as high as he could have been, but he's really starting to find confidence in that wheel. We'll talk about him a little bit later as well. But Charlie causing a VSC, spinning again on lap 6. I think he broke his wing, and that's when the first, like I said, VSC came out. This is where the strategies could be changed. But again, Charlie just not hooking it up, not finding comfort in this track. The only front runner that pit, actually, in fact, I think the only driver that pit that didn't need to was Melvin. So the Williams opting to go onto the hard tyres, only lap 6 as well. So very early to be changing the strategy and taking those tyres for such a long distance. But that's what Williams opted for. It left Matea, Liam and Lockie Docky up at the front. Like I said, Blake. This is when Blake began to cut up the field. Caught up with Alec. Caught up with Mateo. Caught up with Breezy, and McLaren was really finding his pace later into the stint. It was lap 9 where Melvin, it really went wrong for him, and I think this is the worry with pitting so early when no one else does. You may have the faster tyres when you come out, but you're going to be against not just slower people, but a lot of people. The traffic he came across, and he had to make a lot of overtakes. It cost him time, especially if he was trying such an undercut on the drivers ahead, the drivers he was fighting with. He was pushed wide at turn 4 by Alamata, and turn 5 he collided with Walker, causing him to spin into the wall, breaking his wing, and that just ruined the entire strategy. That was huge for Williams, their main driver in this race that was up at the front, and breaking a wing, having to pit again, took him completely out of that fight, and I never saw him back up there again. So it was very, very unfortunate for that. Safety car was called out on lap 12, and I saw Pistol Peter heading into the pits. That was the end of the incredible podium streak that Pistol Peter had. He got I think it was second, third. He was doing such fantastic, especially his race last time out in China. I think he was my driver winner as well. Fantastic drive by Pistol Peter, and to head into the pits and retire after a poor race. I think he headed into the pits and retired. I don't think it was a terminal damage. So to give up like that is really unfortunate. Of course, I mean, you could score points down to 15. It's likely you're going to score points. I mean, a driver of his caliber, he could have done maybe. I don't know what the situation was like in that Red Bull, but it's unfortunate to see a driver like him retire. And ending the incredible podium streak like he did. But like I said, the safety car came out on lap 12, and this is when the strategy came a bit haywire, went a bit crazy, and there were 3 drivers that stuck out to everyone, and it was Locky Docky and both McLarens, all 3 of them, heading into the pits for those soft tyres. They came out 1, 2, 3. They were very close together. This is where it's going to get interesting. They're on the fastest compound. They opted to go for the fastest compound that wouldn't get to the end of the race. They would have to go for another stop. No one else would, so they've gone for an incredibly aggressive strategy, answering to each other. Very interesting as well that McLaren didn't split the strategy. They got both of them. They were so confident they got both of them to react to the Ferrari, who pitted on the softs ahead. This was going to be an incredible race, and it was. So that battle continued on all the way to the end of the race between those 3, the 2 McLarens, and of course Locky Docky. There was a collision though. There was a moment. There was really clean racing. It was fantastic. The battling between Liam and Locky up at the front was fantastic until at turn 11, the dreaded turn 11, where we've seen a lot of incidents this weekend as well. Liam went down the inside, and I wouldn't say that it's a really unfortunate one because, of course, as you know, the rule states that you have to leave 3/4 width of the car on the outside of the track and the inside, of course, to give legal room. For a corner like turn 11, it's quite tight, difficult to do. Liam just took too much speed into the corner, and I wouldn't say that he didn't shove Locky off or anything, but she was on the curb, and it completely decreased her exit. And not only did it allow Liam to get through, it allowed Blake to get side by side. And Blake came in like an absolute torpedo into turn 12, zooming through and actually pushed Locky off. So Liam kind of just placed Locky a little bit too wide. Blake came in through and was having none of it. That gave them both a penalty. I believe Blake's was more severe, but really unfortunate by both McLarens. Caused Locky to spin down the order. I think actually at one point she was actually, she didn't spin of course, but I think she was behind Mateo at one point actually, sitting in P4. So really unfortunate by her to lose 2 positions like that. It allowed Liam to get further ahead, and Blake's job was now to defend Locky to give Liam that win. I'm assuming they knew it was going to be a penalty. Maybe not Liam's, but I imagine they knew Blake's was going to be a penalty. This is when the Ferrari strategy came through, and I don't mean bad Ferrari strategy, I mean good Ferrari strategy. Locky was the first of these 3 to go into the pit for her next stop, and by no surprise, Ferrari and McLaren got it right. Going onto the soft tyres and adding that extra stop to their strategy was the best play. She came out only 2 cars ahead were the cars that hadn't pit yet, so she came out in P5, I believe. And those 2 cars, of course, they were on old hards. They were in absolutely no trouble. She went for the undercut. McLaren straight away reacted to it, double stacking their cars. Very interesting strategy. However, it pulled Blake back so much. There was now like about a 3-second gap between Locky and Blake. And Locky's job was to catch up with Liam, which she was able to do. I don't think anyone would argue that at the end, in that final stint, Locky was the quickest driver by a good margin on Liam. Closed down that gap. Incredible battle once again. Despite with a 3-second penalty, she crossed the line in first place That 3-second penalty brought her back, but the post-race penalties, giving Liam that penalty for pushing her off a little too far, she won the race. Her first race win in XRS. Fantastic job. Liam finished P2, but the drama did not stop there, and we all saw it. Blake disqualified on the second to last lap. I'm laughing and joking because it didn't matter. We gave him back the position, of course, but a little glitch. The game thought that he hadn't pit onto 2 different compounds. Of course, the rules are you have to use 2 different compounds and finish the race using 2 different compounds. Otherwise, you are disqualified on the final lap. He went from hard to soft, like I said. The game didn't pick that up for some reason. He was disqualified on the end of the final lap. He was given back that position. He was given back P3. However, the post-race penalties brought him back even further, and he went down to P4. Vlad went on to P3, his first podium of the season, a double Ferrari podium with McLaren in 2 and 4. Huge points for both teams, but I think McLaren will feel a little bit robbed, a little bit hard done by, because they were in a position to get potentially a 1-2, and it just didn't work out for them. But still, fantastic performance by all the drivers there. I think they should all be very proud of themselves. Onto the driver win, driver loser. Driver galore. The one, I'm going to start straight up because this is going to come from the heart, and I hope 3 people are watching this. There are 3 people I really want to be watching this. Driver winner and team winner. I've got 3 driver winners for you today, so I'm going to put it into driver winner and team winner because 2 of them are teammates. Okay, we're going to start with driver winner. I have to say Lockie, absolutely unbelievable drive, and she's really coming out of her shell. Fantastic ability to go straight into the division. And she's never done league racing before. She did 1 race in KRL's previous season. Her second ever league race was Qatar, which we saw 2 weeks ago, where she qualified 18th after not seeing a quali lap, finished 5th in a track where you can't overtake. It's difficult to overtake. You have to manage everything from tyres to fuel to everything. It's one of the trickiest tracks to get right. Then she comes over to Australia for a second XRS league race, I should say. Does manage to do qualifying, does a very good job in qualifying, qualifies P3, which is very, very impressive. It takes a certain driver to be able to put it on P3. But then to win the race from there, to be fighting people the entire time, and to also get that kind of emotional turmoil in terms of, it wasn't an easy win. She was on the curb, she was on the gravel because of her competitors. And to be able to shake that off, to not let it get to you and make mistakes. She did make a couple of mistakes. She went deep, overtaking Jamie, which was when one of the cars was on hards. She did get a 3-second penalty, which means she was pushing track limits a little bit too much. She made mistakes, and that's okay. Didn't cost her the win, and this is stuff that you take on to your next race and you improve. I hope to see her in Portugal this next weekend. There were mistakes, of course, but overall, fantastic not to let her get to the head. I think F1 is also a mentality game. Even the games and the simulators like this, she managed to catch up with Liam very quickly, in fact, and she was just on another level, especially in the softs. Very deserved win, in my opinion. And what a way to come back after now being a reserve, dropping your seat just before the race, coming through and winning. I think a lot of teams will have their eye on her. Of course, she can't now be signed until mid-season, but I expect her to be in a seat mid-season. I'd be incredibly surprised if she's not. My team winner, and it's McLaren, and it's for 2 different reasons, because both of the individual drivers. I'm going to start with Blake. I'm going to go to Liam next. I hope this is what I'm saying. I hope Lockie's watching this, but I hope Blake and Liam are watching this. We're going to start with Blake. He's adapted to the wheel incredibly fast. I think that Blake is one of the best drivers in the league right now in terms of adaptability. This is his first league like season on a wheel. He was on a controller before. I've raced him on a controller. He was good. He was relatively consistent. He was often on my pace. Good driver. He's come onto wheel, and he's found his pace incredibly quickly. We saw him make a mistake in Qatar where he spun, costing him oppositions. Since then, he's been pretty much flawless. His qualifying isn't incredible. In some tracks it has been. For example, today he qualified 6th. It's okay. But yeah, other than that, I think he's just found his pace so quickly. I don't think that the league expected Blake to be a problem in Division 4 this quickly. Because I think everyone in their head was thinking, right, well, Liam and Blake, that's a good duo. We've seen what Blake can do on a controller. Liam, of course, is improving exponentially at the end of last season in KRL. This is obviously going to be a very good duo. We've got some time with Blake. Let's just get some gains. I'm sure Williams and Ferrari and AlphaTauri are thinking, let's just get some gains now while Blake is still rubbish. But Blake has adapted so quickly. And I think he should be really impressed with where he is. I don't know where he is in the standings right now, but I imagine it's top 5. He's been doing fantastically on that wheel. And I would be surprised if he's not Division 3 next season, which is incredible to be doing. To be going up a division on the end of your first season on a new input is very, very impressive. He should be very proud. And I think that McLaren have made a huge call, a risky call nonetheless, but a huge call in signing him when he's not used to the input he's on. It's worked out. It's completely worked out for them. Blake should be very impressive. Blake should be very proud of himself. But the man I also want to talk about is Liam, going on to the other side of the McLaren garage. Liam's success always makes me happy, and even though I'm in the rival team, I drive for Ferrari, of course. So I mean, in my head, I was cheering for Lockie. I was also cheering for Liam as well. I was McLaren team principal when I signed Liam. Hence, his contract was brought over to XRS as well, and the reason he's in there. I am so happy to see him doing so well. I met Liam in my 4th ever league race, maybe it was 3rd. 4th ever league race, it was Imola, and it was my first ever DNF when he took me out in Imola. I've had 2 DNFs ever in league racing. One was my fault, one was his fault. And since then, I've seen him in several avoidable incidents. I've seen him, and this is in the last 4 months. In just last season in KRL, I saw him being chaotic in Spain, saw him being chaotic in Saudi. He's caused incidents in, I think, Canada. He had 27 seconds of corner cutting track limits. He was a reckless and chaotic driver to deal with. The move he made on Imola, I will always remember being ridiculous. He came out absolutely nowhere on the exit at turn 3 and to put us both on the wall. To see that change from that to being perfectly adapted to being at the front all the time. I saw battery management, I saw tyre management, even though it wasn't very necessary at the end. I saw clean racing. The penalty he got was a mistake. It was a small mistake. It was a very petty mistake. It's such a small penalty. It is a rule. It just is a rule. And I think that, I think the penalties deserved. The reflection of the race, that shouldn't have been a penalty in terms of how fantastically he did and how aware he was and how clean he was the whole race. Seeing, one penalty next to your name isn't deserving of how good his drive was. He crossed the line second. He got P2. He's continuing this fantastic podium streak. He's leading the championship even further than he was in China, which of course he won. Another brilliant drive by him. I think that Liam may be one of the most improved drivers XRS has got, in my opinion, in comparison to what we saw last season in KRL, where we adapted across all the contracts and stuff. I would say Liam is probably top 3 in one of the best drivers in the league in terms of improvement. And I would be, I don't want to say I'd be surprised if he's not in Division 3 next season, but he is clearly improving exponentially. Something in McLaren, and of course his team principal being his friend Millard, it's just clicked for him. And I think it's such a perfect team for him, where he's not in an underdog team necessarily, but the team that wasn't expected to win. Everyone saw Ferrari and thought this is crazy. He's the man that's fighting them. He's the man that's challenging them. And he's made Ferrari in Division 4 almost obsolete. Have we seen Vlad and Dan battling Liam since he's been in his prime? Not very often. We haven't seen much. In fact, actually, Lockie was the Ferrari that fought him the most. And because I talked about this before at the start of the season, Ferrari have got this incredible lineup where they've got a title fighter in every division, which is a very strong position for a team to be. For Liam to come through and not even make you focus on Vlad and Dan, no disrespect to Vlad and Dan, but they've had wobbly, weak starts to the season. Liam, on the other hand, has been incredible, and he's got a fantastic. In fact, I think he's got the most points of anyone in the league, which just isn't something you get by accident. Liam would be my driver winner, but I'm going to give it to Lockie purely because I wanted to talk about Blake and Liam as well, so it makes sense to put them in the team winner together. So that was my logic. Fantastic drive by all 3 of them. That was one of the best races we've had this season. It was chaotic from start to finish. My driver loser, Charlie. The track did not click for him whatsoever. I think he had 3 spins in total, and I think he had a spin in quali as well. I think he had 2 spins in quali actually on the final corner, so clearly he wasn't very happy there. I thought he was on full traction. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Evidently not. I don't think he would be spinning there. He had 2 spins in the race, one of them causing a VSC, which suggests damage. I don't know where he finished, but wherever he finished doesn't equal up to what he should have got. I think that Charlie is probably Liam's biggest contender on the title. I would have said Lockie and Blake potentially, but Lockie is got 50-point deduction from leaving Mercedes. Blake is still adapting to a wheel. So I would say that Charlie, there's pressure on him as probably the second best driver in the tier to be, like I said, putting the pressure on Liam, really making him struggle. This is the first race I've seen him not do that at all. In fact, even China was a wobbly one for him as well. I hope this is a streak that doesn't continue. I would love to see him back at the front in Portugal. Yeah, it's, I don't know. It hasn't been an easy couple of races for him, and yeah, today was the worst by a landslide. Let's hope this streak doesn't continue. But yeah, Charlie was not very comfy in his Williams today, so that wasn't fantastic. My team loser is Alfa Romeo. They were right at the front actually for a good while in that race. Of course, Breezy, new to league racing, he's doing a great job. He's really adapting to the racing and to 50% races, to strategy, to all this. Matteo as well, we moved him down from the division above, so we're expecting him to be at the front. That's what he's been doing. He got disqualified, and I want to say it was because he didn't serve a drive-through. Stupid mistake. I mean, if it is that's a ridiculous mistake. I hope it wasn't, but I don't know why, but he was disqualified, and it was not overturned, meaning it was a real disqualification. Breezy got caught in an incident with Lockie. When I was talking about, actually, and I didn't mention this in the race rundown, I should have done. Because on the same lap as when Liam and Blake shoved Lockie off to get past, the following lap at turn 3, Lockie dived down the inside, was pushed onto the grass a little bit by Blake, kind of, not allowing the brakes to get full effect, slammed into Blake. They were going slow through that corners, and as they went to around turn 5, of course, Lockie was completely off our line. There's a huge crash behind her, caused by braking and avoiding, and because it was just chaos at the front. Alec was caught in that. I forgot to mention this. Alec, who had a fantastic qualifying, caught in that. So that's so unfortunate for Haas. But so was Breezy. The two drivers I was so excited to see at the front. Two teams that are lower down in the OCC getting caught in that incident was really upsetting to see. Of course, that wasn't Matea's fault necessarily, but. Yeah, to be sitting, I think they were 3rd or 4th at one point, or 4th and 5th. To go from there, the P10 and DSQ is, and how did the DSQ happen, man? Yeah, it's so unfortunate. Alfa Romeo, Williams has had a weak couple weekends. China wasn't great. Australia hasn't been amazing. This is their chance to launch an attack and take that P5. They've dropped back from Red Bull and Tauri, and this is not what they need at all. I'm glad that the other divisions went quite well, but this is not a fantastic performance from Alfa Romeo. And it very much dives back to what I said last weekend about Alfa Romeo and how they're the only team with a negative game positions. I don't even understand how that happens for one team out of 10, but this is, again, not helping it. This is making it worse. This is doing the exact wrong thing. So, yeah, it's very unfortunate race by Alfa Romeo, but I don't know why it keeps happening to them, and they really need to sort it out. Right, we lead on to Division 3. Now, this is a weird one. I've never done a cover of Division 3 yet, because, of course, it's my division. I will try and talk about myself as minimally as possible, because we want to keep it fair. Let's talk about the battles that I didn't see, that were going up ahead and behind me, of course. Safety car glitch, another safety car glitch off the line, but as we did go away on lap 3, it was Millard on pole. Fantastic job once again. Second pole in a row, now 2 for 2 with me. So he's clearly a really strong in quali, especially wet quali seems to be standing out. But the main problem straight away was Jace getting disconnected straight away. I think that was one of 2 disconnects, one of them being literally off the line. So he lost a lot of positions in that in doing that. Another one that stood out to me in qualifying was CGM Glass. Glass put it on P2, fantastic for Mercedes as well. I think it's his best quality of the season. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. And of course Benignu battling up at the front. It looked like it was Glass, Millard, and Benignu fighting all at the front. All of them on the medium tyres. On lap 7, it was a massive dive from Glass down the inside, which made it 3 abreast going into that dreaded turn 11. I've talked about turn 11 several times, and MCL made it 3 abreast going down in there with Benignu and Glass. He got tapped a little bit, went a little bit sideways, had to catch the car, lost a couple of positions to Dylan, who started on the medium tyres, to the soft tyres, and Five Wise, who started on the medium tyres. So it was a really close battle up at the front here. There were cars on top of each other in this front fight. We'll get onto that shortly. Lap 10, Glass collided with Ben at the chicane, and this is where the chaos started. They went towards the chicane, of course the fast 9-10 chicane and collided with each other. Benignou had to cut the chicane to try and escape, and when he came out, of course, he had a huge speed decrease, and everyone zoomed past him. There were 7 cars on top of each other going through that final sector. It was incredible to see Matt sweep through and get up to P2. He gained, I think, 4 positions on that little area, that little straight. It was fantastic to see. I am assuming with tyre degradation, it was Glass who began to drop back. One of the Alfa Romeos, I think it was Fetch, got him, and MCL went into the pits for a very early pit stop. MCL going for that undercut, and it really worked out for him. He finished off with the podium, but we'll talk about that later. The battle for P5 was chaotic after some of the drivers headed to the pits. It was me, Fetch, and Glass. Me with another uncharacteristically poor quali, started outside the top 10 this time, with Fetch and Glass battling as well. Playing with the DRS, of course, there's 4 DRS straights, so it keeps the battling really, really close in Australia. We have to be so careful of the walls because it is one of the fastest street tracks you can have on the calendar. Everyone headed to the pits, and it was obvious that MCL had got the strategy right. Of course, he'd gone for an undercut. On paper, it wouldn't work because at the end of the race, he'd be so much slower, but he did a fantastic job, and that undercut did work. He got himself promoted up into that front fight with Benignou, and closer to Millard as well. After the pit stops, there were 2 people that everyone seemed to be watching. It was Matt and 5Wise. Lap 19 was their first collision, heading towards turn 3. I think it's 3. They collided wheels, causing Matt to understeer a little bit, and had a little bit of a snap there. They had to weave out of. Got very close, got very tasty. But it was a few laps later, lap 23. We're going towards the fast turn 9, turn 10 chicane. 5Wise and Matt collided, coming through the corner, putting Matt into a wall. He didn't DNF, but he did lose his wing, causing him to have to go into the pit. Came out far, far down the back. I think dead last, actually, at that point. P14 following the 2 DNFs. And that was the end of some really good points for AlphaTauri. P1 Millard, P2 MCL with an unreal undercut. Means that both his positions that he's in the races that he's done. Qatar he won, and Australia finished P2. And Benignou with a first podium of the season, very, very deserved for a guy who's been fighting up at the front in all the races he's been doing. Very unlucky in Qatar, so he's kind of made up for it. Nice to see him on the podium. My driver winner. Now, obviously, like I said, my knowledge of this race is limited. I've got it all from the stream and from the quali, from the highlights as well. Done my little research. But driver winner has to go to MCL. I think that he was at the back of this kind of front fight. Qualified, I think, P6. May have been P8. So not an incredible qualifying. He just seems very, very consistent in the race. He seems to keep up. Stays off the track limit penalties, which actually enabled him to get P2. He crossed the line P3. Exactly the same as Qatar when he won the race. Stayed off the track limit penalties. Crossed the line P2, won the race. So consistency is a huge thing in that Alfa Romeo. Lovely that he's got signed because he's going to be a real title contender, I think. But to work the undercut so well, keep those tyres alive, and then be fighting up at the front at the end is fantastic. What a way to announce yourself in the division. Second race, second podium, unbelievable drive. My driver loser is me. Unfortunate. I mean, it's probably better it's me, because if I'm doing my own division, if I'm talking about my own division, I probably shouldn't be boasting about myself and stuff like that. This was not a race to be boasting about whatsoever. I qualified 11th, which is very poor. Obviously, my qualifying's been pretty strong this season. I got pole, and then 10th and 11th, so it's been quite weak on the wet qualies, it seems. But unlike China, where the second it got dry, I was able to cut through the field like it was easy. Australia wasn't quite the same. I picked up a couple positions off the start. The first stint was the real difficult one. That's not even a lie. I stayed in P11 and P10, that kind of area, after the first stint. It was only when I strapped on the softs that I was able to start overtaking people. Managed to get up to P7, P6, but I got a track limit penalty. Pulled me back down to P7. It's poo race. For the guy who's supposed to be sitting in P2 in the championship, this is contending with Millard. It's wet quali that really pulled me back. And that first stint on the mediums, I had no grip. You're not much use if you're good in one stint, and I was good in one stint, which was the second stint in the softs. So there wasn't really a way I was going to get back from that, I don't think. Weak track, and the result stands for that. My team winner is going to be Alfa Romeo. Of course, we didn't have Pink in this race today. We had Fetch, and we had, of course, MCL, Fetch being a reserve, looking for a seat. And I'm very surprised he hasn't got a seat. I mean, there's not many seats. I don't think there's any seats free in DIV4 currently. but we may be seeing one opening shortly. I won't talk about that here, of course, publicly. Although by the time this goes out, it might actually be public, to be fair. Yeah, it's Fetch would do very good in the seat. He wasn't the quickest, he wasn't the slowest. Very consistent drive though. Started 12th, finished 8th, I think, and then 10-second penalty though. I think he got a 10-second penalty for taking out Neek, but silly mistake. I mean, still made up positions. Good, very solid drive. MCL, of course, was the star of the show in the Alfa Romeo garage. Starting 6th, finished 2nd. Another very solid drive. I think MCL and Pink, if they're able to work that pairing well together, I don't see why they couldn't win constructors here. You know, it's a very interesting division here with already 3 teams very close: McLaren, AlphaTauri, and Mercedes, and Ferrari, of course. So to add Alfa Romeo into that fight with 2 very, very solid drivers would be interesting, in my opinion. My team loser is very obvious, and I've given them team winner, I think, all of the weekend so far. And this knuckles down to it just being terrible. AlphaTauri, they qualified 4th and 5th. That is excellent. Clearly, wet qualifying really works for Jace. He's been up at the front now twice. Qualified 5th in China, qualified 5th here in Australia. Matt as well, starting at the front once again. To throw that away in the ways that it did, Matt was taken out, and I appreciate it was given NFA, so it wasn't necessarily his fault. He did a very good drive, but to finish P14, the back of the pack of the finishers, and scoring 2 points, very poor. And Jace DNF'd, and I don't even know how. He disconnected twice, dropping him back to, I think, the back, and then I just never saw him again. So to go from 4th and 5th, which in hypotheticals could be scoring you the highest points of that race, maybe McLaren would be contending as well, but to drop down to literally the worst you could have been. The only worst positions they could have finished was Matt DNFing as well. So they were given the bare minimum after a relatively solid qualifying, I can't lie. Very, very good. So they are my team loser by miles. That is the end of the rundown, the first half rundown of Australia. I was on my own. Look how empty the screen is, everybody. Look how empty I am today. But tomorrow it will not be empty. I'll be having a special guest running through Division 1 and 2. So join me tomorrow evening for the rundown of Division 1 and 2. You want to hear about those chaotic races and the mystery that is the missing Division 2 race. We'll be talking about it tomorrow. Me and my special guest. I look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye.